What's going on, everybody? Another episode of The Sit Down. And today I've got a very special guest. It is Trisha Volpe of Trisha's Italy. How's it going, Trisha?
Hello, buongiorno. Benissimo. Come stai? How are you?
Bene, bene.
Very good. Are you practicing your Italian?
I'm practicing. See, this is the thing is that I've totally been called out before not being fluent in speaking Italian. So I'm in the process of learning, as I think
Nice.
everybody who is Italian American should at least know the basics, I think, personally. There's so many
I
resources,
agree.
especially free resources on how to learn how to speak the language. You should definitely do it.
Absolutely. I
So,
definitely agree.
yeah, so what are do you teach Italian? You're a English teacher, an Italian teacher?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm an Italian teacher, but I've also taught English abroad over in Italy as well.
Oh, very, very cool. How'd you get into that?
Yeah, so I've always just been really interested in teaching, and so when I was living in Italy. It's kind of a long story, but I was in Italy, and I was looking for things to do like job wise, and I found teaching, and I just loved it, and I got to work with so many different people. I worked with many like top four companies in Italy, as well as the
Oh,
Italian
awesome.
government, teaching English.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was great, but I did a lot of different things when I was living in Italy.
Very,
But that
very
was
cool.
one of them.
So you're from the States though, that's correct?
Yeah, I'm actually from Philly.
Oh, okay. Very, very cool. So you were born in Philly and then are your parents from Italy, your grandparents from Italy, or
Yeah, so my dad is from Italy. He actually came over when he was maybe like 20 something. But he came over and he grew up in Italy. I mean, basically his whole
Mhm,
life. And he came over with my grandparents, my nonni, and my great grandmother, so my bisnonna.
mhm.
And they all lived in Philadelphia. And it's funny, my great grandma actually lived until she was um, like 100 years old, and she lived in South Philly by herself, like up until the time she passed, which was just amazing. She didn't really speak English or anything.
Mhm.
So for me growing up, it was always really important to know the language, to learn the language. And I think it's interesting because I know that a lot of Italian Americans, um, they don't they don't have that language. They don't speak Italian. They know the slang words,
Yeah.
but they don't have like the
You know the bad
actual
words.
exactly. They don't have the actual like standard Italian, so they can't really hold a conversation, which for me has always been really interesting because growing up, I was lucky enough that my dad spoke Italian to me every once in a while, not often. I
Mhm.
always had to kind of beg him because he wanted to speak English and stuff. But my grandparents didn't speak English. So it was really important for me to learn the language. So I actually, when I went off to university, I did a lot of different studying, but then I finally um, got into studying Italian studies and the language really well.
Very cool. I
So
actually have a theory on this. So I think because my grandparents all came over, my parents were born in the States, and
mhm.
for them growing up, they were always like Italian was their first language.
Okay.
So they had such a hard time like in school because they grew up learning Italian and they basically had to learn English at school, and they were almost just like and I don't want to say angry about it, but they just didn't want like I guess us to go through the struggle or confuse us in any way. So that's kind of like
Mhm.
why I don't necessarily speak Italian because
Absolutely.
I'm
No,
out.
it makes sense. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's the thing with a lot of the Italian Americans that nowadays the new generations,
Mhm.
because when their grandparents or their great grandparents or whoever it was came over, it was usually during the time of unification when a lot of the Italian immigrants did
Mhm.
come over to the States, not only the States, but also, for example, Brazil, Argentina, Canada. So, but when they came over, they wanted to assimilate. They didn't want to be discriminated against. So, a lot of them really did lose their language in that process. And I know, for example, my dad, he got picked on all of the time in school when he came over to the States, too. So,
I
because
know.
he actually, yeah, he came over for a little bit when he was in grade school, and then he went back to Italy,
Okay.
and then finally stayed here. So when he was in grade school for a couple years in the States, it was brutal.
I can imagine. I know. There's a story.
Yeah.
My oldest aunt like had to repeat kindergarten just because she didn't know how to
Oh
speak
my
English.
gosh.
This
Oh
is like
dear.
Yeah, and I mean, she was born in the States, so it's crazy. It's just crazy to
Yeah,
be
oh
born
wow.
in the
That's
States.
awesome.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's all part of like that generation, and I mean, everybody has their own unique
Mhm.
stories, I'm sure, especially like growing up only knowing Italian and then growing up not knowing Italian. And then, of course, like
Exactly.
when my mom wanted to try and teach us Italian, we were like 5, 6, 7, and we didn't want to learn anything. We go to
Right, you're
school, we
like,
want to come
"What
home
do
and
I"
play.
Exactly, it makes sense. But that's the time you should teach little kids, all right, when their
Uh,
brains are sponges. It's so
I,
important. I actually taught Italian to grade schoolers here, in the States, and from kindergarten to 5th grade, and it was just crazy. Like, they just absorb so much. Like, they would come to class the next day and just repeat everything that I had taught them the
that's
day before, and
awesome.
I'm like, "How do you know that?" Bravi.
So is that what you do full time now? You're
Actually, no. So due to, the pandemic and everything going on, I actually left my teaching job, which was kind of sad because I really did enjoy it. I only did it for about a year though, because I've only been in the States now for a year after moving back from Italy. But I actually decided to pursue my master's degree. So I'm actually attending an Italian university right now over in Italy. Right now it's all online,
oh,
luckily, so I
congrats.
can stay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks. Yeah, so I can stay in the States for now. I do plan on going over in the beginning of next year
Mhm.
and moving back to Italy, but I'm just focusing on Italian studies. So
Very cool, very cool. So what was like your first when was the first time you went to Italy, I guess?
yeah, the first time I was about probably 8 years old.
Okay.
Um, And I mean, I remember everything so clearly, every single detail. It was the most amazing trip of my life. And that was really when I was just introduced to true Italian culture, like what Italy actually is. Growing up with it, speaking the language, whatever. But when you actually go there, it's a completely different story. So I just fell in love.
And then what was the time where you kind of went there and you're like, "Oh, I'm not coming back anymore," because you lived in
Yeah, actually, when I was in college, I studied abroad. I did a program in Rome, and I did that for 2 semesters. And then when I graduated, I was like, nah, I'm just gonna stay here. I was offered a job, so it was great. I was offered a job translating at a pharmaceutical company in my dad's hometown, which is in the south of Italy. So it's in the province of Avellino, and it was a very small mountain town. So I just packed up my bags in Rome and I just went down to Montella, which is the town, and
so
it was great
awesome, so
for three
awesome.
years, I think.
Awesome. Do you have any
Yeah,
like funny like translating stories or anything like that or anything like that?
not not really.
Anything cool come to
No,
your head?
I just well, I translated for pharmaceutical companies, so it was really great. I got to work with like the FDA and things like that, like in meetings and stuff. I can't think of any funny stories. I just remember my colleagues; they always wanted me to teach them like the bad words in English, and I would always say, "No, I'm not teaching you that. There's no need for you to know that." But I always gave in. So
That's funny. And then now you kind of like popped on TikTok and Instagram and you had some videos go pretty viral, get picked up by a lot of big pages. So when did that all kind of start? When did you like get on some of the social medias and start putting out content?
yeah, so I guess after the pandemic hit, I was kind of bored at home. I wasn't really doing anything. And I was like, well, I still want to teach Italian. I still want to get my message out there. So I had a friend who said, you should do TikTok. And I was like, no, I'm not. There's no way I'm getting on TikTok. And then I just did this random video one day. I said, you know what, I'm just going to do how to pronounce Italian words versus how Italian Americans pronounce these words. And because it was like going around on Facebook, like I'm in a bunch of these Italian groups, and all of these people were saying, oh, it's mozzarella or it's gabagool. And I'm like, oh. So I had to like, I had to teach them. So I put out this video. It was just for fun. I mean, I think it's so fascinating to research and to understand where these Italian American slang words came from, because they're all derived from dialect, which
Yep.
is just incredible. So
Mhm.
yeah, so that video just went viral. I don't know.
It went crazy on Facebook, right?
Yeah, it was on Facebook and it was on TikTok. I mean, it's so funny because then I got a lot of hate for it, and they're like, "Why are you judging Italian American slang?" I'm like, "I'm not. I'm just telling you that
The
there's two
amount
different ways.
the amount Italians fight with each other is unprecedented, I think.
The hot-headedness.
Oh my God, I know. I mean, I'm I'm guilty of this too, but in different aspects. I would never just hate on someone for trying to pronounce something if they mispronounced it. Like obviously they're trying to learn, and who
Hmm.
cares? At the end of the day, it's not a big deal.
Right, exactly.
But what do you
It's
think
not.
of I see it a lot now on TikTok, especially. There's Italians that just roast Italian Americans, just like people from Italy, like no matter who you are, if you're from the States, like you're getting like targeted.
Right. Yeah. So that's part of what I am trying to do with my channels is kind of get the message out there, not only to Italian Americans about, how true Italian culture is, but also to the Italians who probably don't understand why Italian Americans are the way that they are. Why did their culture become what it is today? Almost really completely different from what actual Italian culture is. I mean, and it's not wrong. It's different because it has evolved. And I find that so interesting. So I do a lot of videos explaining why this happened, how this happened,
What
and
are what are
just
some
the
examples of
differences between the
what
two
are
cultures.
what are some examples of the evolution? Do you have any just off the top of your head?
Yeah, well, I mean, with the slang, right? The Italian American slang words, like why are Italian Americans pronouncing words the way that they are, thinking that they are truly Italian words? Like it's not mozzarella, it's mozzarella.
Hmm.
But in reality, it's mozzarella, right, in Italian. But the way that they say mozzarella is derived from the Southern dialects that, say that the R's become kind of like the D and then the vowels drop off of the end of the word. So
Hmm.
that's how we get to that point. But not only that, but also I did another video, I think last week, about the Feast of the Seven Fishes, right?
Hmm.
So this is a huge thing in Italian American culture, the La Vigilia, right? The Christmas Eve feast.
Hmm.
You have to have seven fishes all laid out on the table. Um, and this is not really a feast that they do in Italy, in a sense of they don't actually call it seven fishes. In Italy, it's just you can eat fish on Christmas Eve, and that's tradition. For some of the regions, it's not even true in all of the regions, which is really interesting. But in America, Italian Americans, they have to have seven fish. But I actually heard that in Calabria, Italian Americans from Calabria do 13 fish. So I don't know. It's just so
Which
incredible.
store could you go to even get 13?
Right. I mean, it's crazy. It's great.
That's funny. I mean, I have a couple words written down. If you would like, I could pronounce them how people are usually pronouncing them. So I'll do the bad ones. So there's no nobody could hate on me, and then
Right.
you could tell me how it's pronounced correctly.
I'll try.
All right. So some people say Gnocchi, and then how should you really pronounce it?
Gnocchi.
Gnocchi.
Gnocchi. Yeah, the GN is a very tricky sound for a lot of people. Gnocchi.
I've had some battles with friends about that one for sure.
Yeah. Gnocchi, gnocchi. It's great.
For sure. I've got a funny story. When my sister was a baby, like she couldn't really pronounce anything. She would, for some odd reason, I don't know why, but she'd say Renaki. Like she was like 1 year old. Like it was the cutest thing in the world. It
That's
was
so cute.
so funny.
Yeah. We'll give her a pass. That's
Yeah.
fine.
So the next one's people say bruschetta.
Oi, bruschetta.
Bruschetta.
Bruschetta,
I was even
right?
guilty for a while of not pronouncing it. It's the sketta.
Yes,
That's where people get hung up on.
exactly.
Now some people say grazie, and
Right. So grazie.
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 Like
Yeah.
really
A lot of
go
people,
put.
yeah. So in Italian, you have to pronounce every letter as you see it,
Mhm.
right? So Americans want to pronounce it grazie, right? Just the
Mhm.
E at the end, but it's grazie because there's an E
Grazie.
at the
Mhm.
end. So
That's a
yeah,
tricky one. I've seen a lot of people get
that
hung up
one's
on it
tricky.
too. And then there's biscotti. That's the one I hear it pronounced I get a lot.
Biscotti.
Biscotti.
Biscotti,
That's
esattamente.
mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't say that pronouncing these the American way is wrong, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously it's in English. You're pronouncing it the way that English phonetics are,
Yeah,
right?
you would read it.
So for those of you that don't speak, Italian, I mean, it's normal, and I think that's fine. But I think it's also important that if you're trying to speak Italian, or you want to
Yeah,
have
for
the
people
correct
trying to learn and want to do
pronunciation,
it.
Yeah, exactly.
So what would you suggest if somebody's like brand new to Italian? What's the first step they should take in starting to learn the language?
So I would definitely get some music going, start listening to Italian music, start reading Italian books, Italian TV shows, Italian movies, if you're not taking classes at the moment. I do recommend classes. Online classes now are like a big thing. You can do Duolingo, which is a good app that I've heard. But what I really do recommend is watching your favorite movie that you know by heart in English and getting it in Italian. This way, you know what's coming, you know what they're talking about, you know the context. Now you can kind of relate the words.
That's a very, very good tip. So now
Yeah,
I've got a couple movies in mind that we could definitely watch. But
there you go.
I've tried Duolingo. I spent like I was making sure it was like every single day for like months on end. But at some point, like I don't think I'll ever have to say the mouse drinks wine. It's like
That's true.
these crazy sentences. That's like I don't think I'll have to say that ever.
No, exactly. And so I don't have patience for that kind of stuff
Hmm.
either, though. Like if I am going to learn a language, I have to be in the culture. I have to, listen to the music, watch the movie, because I can't just sit there every day and get on at the same time and talk about the mouse drinking milk or whatever.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
can't.
so for all you listening, start bumping some Capo Plaza and
Right. Exactly. Some Rocco Hunt, actually. He's my
Rocco. That's
favorite.
another one I heard of. I need like yeah, because that's something I've been getting into lately is because like Spanish rap is huge in America.
Yeah.
Like Luis Fonsi, Daddy Yankee, all these guys, and I don't know why. Like some of the guys like you said, Rocco Hunt or Capo Plaza. How come they haven't made the transition yet?
Right. Exactly.
Because I think right now Italian American culture is like I would argue the biggest that it's ever been. There's
Yeah.
so many influencers, there's so many pages, just personalities in general,
Yeah.
comedians like Sebastian Maniscalco, Anthony Rodia, Mike
Hmm.
Marino, like actors,
Tops.
Sylvester
Yeah.
Stallone. I mean, like there's so much out there. I don't know how come some certain Italians and artists like they like that should be an easy
Don't take
transition.
advantage, right? Yeah. I don't know. I don't understand that either. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah. So why aren't they like doing songs together? Can you imagine?
Right. I don't know. I think maybe because Italian isn't like a hugely spoken language, especially now, with the
Yeah.
Italian Americans not really speaking Italian. Whereas, you have the Spanish artists or the Latin American artists that,
And
they
there's
still hold on to that language.
mhm. Yeah, I guess you could argue that too. And some of like the major like Hispanic communities and the Cuban community,
Hmm.
especially like in Florida and all across like the South.
Yeah.
Like,
Hmm.
and the artists are actually down there too as well. So I
Right.
can see that being an
Exactly.
issue, but I don't see why Cabo Plaza can't like be a feature on
Non lo so.
a track
No
or
idea.
something like that. I'm very excited for that to happen in the future.
Exactly. I mean, Andrea Bocelli is huge here, though.
Oh, I
That's
know, I
that's the
know.
thing, right?
That's on the bucket list to go see him perform anywhere. I don't care where it is.
Yeah. I actually, when I was living in Italy, as I said, I did a lot of different things, but I worked for a tour company, and we actually did like tours with Andrea Bocelli, with into his vineyards and stuff. And he
Uh,
has like an annual concert every year, and in Tuscany. I mean, it's fantastic. So if you
did
ever
you
get
ever get
the
to meet him
opportunity,
or?
yeah, he's so
Wow,
nice. He's really nice. Yeah, he's a
that's
good person.
insane. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's
I'm
great.
super jealous. That's awesome. Good for you though. That's like something like that people like that's so great that like you're doing what you love and you're able to travel, meet so many cool people. And I
Hmm.
wish I really kind of because that's what I kind of push too, because even with this, like this isn't my main business, but it's a big part of my business is doing the
Hmm.
podcast and the content. And I'm able to meet so many people, go see so many cool places. And I really try
Yeah,
to push that to a lot more people to just really kind of go out there and do what you love to do.
absolutely.
It's
It's
very
great.
cool that you're
Good for
doing
you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm trying.
that. So
I'm
what's
trying.
next? Yeah, so what's next? Where can everybody find you at? You have a website and
Yeah, I do. I have a website. It's still kind of under construction. I'm going to be posting a lot of blog posts. So as I said, I'm in grad school right now,
Mhm.
so I'm trying to keep up with like everything going on. But I'm definitely trying to grow my own thing. So I do Italian lessons online. I'm kind of taking a break from that right now because of grad school. But I have my website. It's all Trisha's Italy. So Trisha's Italy all across the board.
Okay, that'll
Yeah.
all be in the descriptions wherever you're listening to this as well. And once you finish grad school, let me know. I'll sign up for some lessons 100%.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to have you as a student. So,
Awesome, Trisha. Well, I really
bye. Yeah.
appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast. This was a blast. And
Yeah, it's
anything
great.
else you want to say to the listeners before we get off?
I just welcome everyone to my channel, Italian American, Italian. Let's just learn about each other's culture.
Yeah, and let's
So,
stop being mean to each other too.
exactly.
All right, guys.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for listening, and talk to you in the next episode. Ciao.